2, 1. Kia ora! How are you all tonight or the morning, depending on where you are? Make sure that you put your name and where you're from down in the comments below so we can say hello. Welcome to Agility Matters on this wonderful Friday evening here in New Zealand, where we look at adaptive organizations, responding to customer needs, and being flexible in their approach to agility. Tonight, we are going to be joined by Murray. Murray is the founder of Evolve.co. He's got 30 years experience in this industry. He's an expert in product delivery, agile product delivery, and we're going to chat about that. And we're also going to chat about what's wrong with the agile community. Hey, Murray, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We've had a good long chat already, and I wish we recorded some of that. I think our viewers would have quite enjoyed some of those topics. So we'll try and get into some of those, eh? So tell us a bit about yourself. Like, who are you? Where you from? How did you come to where you are now to be sitting here on the Agility Matters live stream?
Okay, I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Started as a software developer 30 years ago. I've been a business analyst, a project manager, a general manager. I've worked for startups, digital agencies, and huge corporations. So, and back in 2004, I started doing Agile. I loved it, and I have since then been trying to persuade people to use it on projects and product development wherever I can.
Love it. So what is it about Agile that floats your boat? What was the trigger, I guess, or what was the story that made you go, this is for me?
Well, I found being a project manager actually very stressful because I took all of the responsibility onto myself. And it's like always stuck in the middle with being blamed by the team or blamed by executives. I found with Agile when I first did it, and what I did was XP basically.
Nice.
I found the shared responsibility with the team really liberating for me, and just a way of working, having a smooth flow, having a flexible scope. It just made the team a lot happier. It made me a lot happier, and I feel like we really got a much better product result for our product managers.
I will absolutely agree with that. What we found with one of our studies, funny enough, was something that you and me both know, but it's very hard to measure, was employee value. That had a massive impact aligned with customer value. So not only did employee value increase customer value, but then customer value also improved employee value. Not surprisingly, profit did not improve employee value. Employees didn't care how much profit an organization was making. Cool. So look, I'm going to rock us into a question, right? Straight off the bat. So Edwin, and I hope you're on the line, Edwin. If you're on the line, Edwin, say hello. Kia ora, Kola. So Kola just said kia ora, Murray and Mike. So what are most people doing wrong? And what are most people doing right? And he's referring to what's up, Agile. What do you think?
Oh. So most Agile I see is really pretty awful. So I see a lot of what I would call water scrum fall. In other words, people are doing waterfall in stages with gates, but at each stage they're doing sprints. So for example, you have an analysis team doing analysis sprints and writing extremely detailed user stories, preparing all the sprints. And when they finish, it goes through a gate, and then it goes on to the design team who do their sprints. And then when they finished, it goes on to a dev team who do their sprints. When they finish, it goes on to a test team who do theirs. And see that a lot in corporates, and it's really produces very little value at all. So that's something that people are doing wrong a lot.
Yeah.
The other thing that people are doing wrong a lot, even in really good Agile shops, and I have seen a few good Agile shops, is that they're not focusing on product value. What is the outcome that we're getting for our customers and users. So in most good agile shops, agile is a technical thing that the technical team is doing and being very productive and doing well. But people are we're having trouble driving it into the product domain.
Mm.
So what are people doing right? Most people are doing like the technical stuff right. So, they're doing sprints and having scrum masters and um, that sort of stuff is going pretty well. I see a lot of people talking about empowerment and sharing responsibility with the team. So that seems pretty good. And, I see a lot of positivity around agile still, even though, there's quite a few problems as well.
Yeah. What I'm getting from that, Murray, so let me just feed this back to you. You tell me if you agree with my synopsis of what you just said. The technical recipe cookie cutter is done very well, but the reasoning behind these concepts is not understood enough and therefore not being implemented enough. And I give you an example. If somebody is implementing sprints, why? And how do you know how long they should be? How is it delivering value to the users and customers? And thank you very much for saying users and customers, because that's one of the big things that I think is wrong with the community, is that saying that one department is your customer. They're not your customer. They're your internal stakeholder. They are a user.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. And that's kind of where I'm going. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Yes, it's being done quite well at the small team level, particularly
Hmm.
in the development teams, but it's just not producing the value we expect because it's not reaching out into the rest of the organization, and in particular, it's not reaching upstream into the planning and the product development.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And it's very easy, right? This is why SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, does so well. It is a cookie cutter, step-by-step process that anyone can follow. And if a Scrum Master was to pick up a 2-day course, they could quite literally become a Scrum Master and follow the recipe. But if you don't understand why these things work, how do they actually link to value, how do you measure value, then it's worthless. And this is why I said to you earlier on before we started, I would rather a team with the right mindset be an agile team delivering Waterfall than have all the technical stuff under the sun, but actually not understand the reasoning why they're doing something. They're not iterating on the value being created, which is why, and I know you want to talk about this, why I'll have the statement, and I'll say it out live to everyone. I think Waterfall can be agile. I don't think all agile methodologies are actually agile.
I don't think Waterfall can be agile. And I say this as somebody who's actually run quite a lot of Waterfall projects. You can get some small benefits from doing sprints within a stage or a gate. But agile should be about talking to customers and users, understanding what they want, developing prototypes, showing people, getting feedback, building things, implementing them, getting feedback, and getting things out that people want really quickly. So the feedback loop needs to be between the customers and the users and the technical people, and it needs to be quick. And Waterfall just completely separates the developers from any contact with customers and users normally.
Yeah, and I won't fully disagree with you on that. And Waterfall can be quite. Oh, it's bringing comment back up.
You know what Waterfall's good for? Waterfall is fantastic for generating change requests for consulting companies.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
You can make a fortune out of it.
So let's take a team who are doing Waterfall, and you're totally correct. They are doing Waterfall. I'll be a bit funny here, right? Yeah. They're spending 1 day doing analysis. They're spending 1 day doing development. They're doing 1 day doing test, and they've got an iterative cycle where basically one person's doing each part, and they're delivering every 4 or 5 days. And they've got a Kanban approach to it. It is purely Waterfall, but they're pulling the system through the Kanban, and they found that the most productive way of delivering value to their customers.
I don't think that's Waterfall. I wouldn't call that Waterfall at all. I really like Kanban. I implemented
I love Kanban.
I love Kanban. Kanban's wonderful, particularly with Scrum. Kanban and Scrum together, fantastic. But I
Scrum
don't think,
ban.
yeah, Scrum ban. I think what you're talking about that's not waterfall to me.
No, so I'm being hyperbolic on purpose. This is how I get a waterfall team. I don't tell them they're all wrong. I don't go, that's completely wrong. Don't do that. Scrap it. Go do sprints. I will literally go, right, this use the Kanban approach. Let's document what we're doing now. Okay, so you're doing this design, development, inception, development, test, whichever cycle you've got. Great, it's a waterfall style, right? With a lot of change requests going on. Excellent. Let's start there. So as Kanban says, let's start there. Then what I do is I iterate from there, get their mindset going right, and they iterate out of waterfall into a form of Kanban. But to the organization, they're still doing waterfall.
But it's
I'm
not the
being
team. You're talking about the team level, but the team really doesn't have control over the process that they're in. It's the managers who have control, and I think that's where you need to be working.
And that's interesting. Say, I've been known, and this is probably a difference here as well, and I like this, is I go into organization and I ignore the managers. And I tell them that up front. I say, sorry guys, look, at the end of the day, I'm here for the teams, or the teams of teams. I'm here for the people. If you're going to control the process, I'm not coming in. And 9 times out of 10, they say, I don't want to control the process. I'm just doing it because the team want me to. Great. It's all I want to hear. And I come in and I say to the teams, you own the process. What do you want to do? And they always start with waterfall, with a small little change. And then they iterate slowly. And you can still say it's waterfall-y or fragile-y, or what's the new term now? Water scrum fall. Water scrum fall. It totally is. But I'm happier with those people than I am with a team where someone's gone in and implemented Scrum 100%, but the mindset hasn't shifted. That they're still going to their managers for approval, that they're still looking for validation. They're not actually looking at what the value they're creating. Does that make sense? That's where I'm coming from with waterfall can be agile. I'll always say they'll iterate out of it, but I'm not going to say all waterfall does not meet the right mindset. And that's the reason why, because that's where you start and you iterate from there. Does that make sense?
Look, I think it's very important to work with the team and help them to be effective in using Agile, and retrospective is absolutely key to that. But so I've worked with both digital agencies and digital startups, and also huge corporates, or a lot of corporates really. And in corporates, there is a big process that you're part of, and you can't do much about it at the team level. So that's why I say that you actually need to work with the managers.
Yeah, and we're probably pivoting a little bit onto a different conversation, which we should go back to actually, because we at Surge agree with that. Going into the leadership first makes more sense. But Edward had a good point here, and this is where the term being and doing agile comes from, I think. Do you mean do agile, the action, instead of be agile, thinking how to improve? Edwin, totally. This is a big A, little a scenario, right? There is the doing agile, the tools and process, which is reasonably simple. And I always say that the way, I could teach you Scrum in 3 minutes. We could implement Scrum in 3 weeks. We can get benefits from Scrum in 3 months, but it'll take you 3 years to actually get any culture change. The action of agile, very simple. And I think that's what Murray's saying as well. The state of being agile is a much larger thing, and it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant of what tools and processes you do, as long as the behaviors and the culture and the outcomes for customers make sense. Would you agree with that, Murray? Am I going a little bit tangent?
Yeah, I see a lot of people using Jira, and that doesn't make you agile. So you can do
it's post-it notes.
I mean, Jira is quite good, but the technical stuff is just one aspect of it. It's the thinking is really important as well.
Nice. Well, I think we've got some good agreements there, and some only small discrepancies. So I think that is exactly what's wrong with the Agile community. I think it's polar. We had Niall here, also from Melbourne, must have been 2 months ago now. And something very similar that he brought up as well is we got this polar side. You've got the technical people, probably the safe people, trying to push on a technical solution for everything. And over here, you've got these wannabe life coaches who basically think it's all about fairy dust and sprinkling success. And what do you think that means? And yeah, are you seeing the same sort of polar opposites? Do you think one's worse than the other, to Edward's point originally?
Between SAFe and the life coaches.
Base, yeah.
So I am SAFe certified practitioner, and I've run program increments, and there's a lot I like in SAFe. It's a big toolbox, but I've never seen it implemented successfully. It's always done in a very authoritarian way, very hierarchical way, and it has a very slow cycle time. Usually what happens is that people plan for 2 months for their program increment meeting or 2 days, and then they set their plan for 3 months and they commit to it. So it becomes really what they're doing is a series of 3 months fixed scope projects. That's how SAFe is nearly always implemented. And it means the cycle time between idea and something being implemented is around 5 months, which is far too long for me. But, you know, big companies like SAFe. They like the structure and the hierarchy and all the roles and all the detail.
Oh, makes it easy, right?
And it's a big industry. I know a guy who's making a lot of money out of training people to be, you know, SAFe practitioners. On the other side, the life coaches, that really annoys me. All of these life coaches coming into the industry and talking a whole lot of bullshit about, you know, how do you feel? And we can't provide any advice. It's all about you. Just asking Socratic questions. That annoys me no end.
Yeah. We have a private WhatsApp group chat. And Amar, if you're listening, I'm going to call you out, buddy. And Amar said, what does the whole leave your ego at the door comment mean? And we got into this almost philosophical question on what is ego and how do you leave it at the door. Anyway, it's irrelevant. But where that's coming from is all these coaches who are coming out and saying that, you know, here's what you should do. You shouldn't give any answers. You should only ask, you know, listening questions. You know, great. Are you getting any results that way? Ask yourself, have things improved? Has the team's improved? Has the customers getting more value? Is anything happening in your teams right now? No? Then you have no ROI. You are not giving any value yourself. You are a waste to the system and you need to leave. And I'm quite blunt with that. Coaches who don't provide value need to leave ethically. Yeah. So I will totally support you on that, Murray. It's a very frustrating thing. And I think I saw a comment on LinkedIn I loved. It's Agile coaches, please stop doing psychometric testing. You're not qualified. And I thought, yeah, we're not. And then I made the joke that said, I'll do 2 distractions for $99 and a appendix removal for $199.
Yeah, look, if you want to be a therapist or a psychologist, go and get some professional training. Don't use Agile coaching as a way to be a psychologist for people.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, since we're talking about some of what's wrong with Agile, I've been involved with a group called Agile 2.
Yeah,
Michael, which has been trying to develop a next iteration of Agile. Have you heard of it?
I have, briefly. But I think it's good to... Okay. No, I'll let you. What is Agile 2, Murray?
It's a group of independent-minded Agile coaches with a lot of practical experience who've got together and just tried to work out what is going wrong with Agile now and what can we do better.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's a few core ideas. One of them is the idea of balance. So in the original Agile manifesto, we say that we prefer responding to change over planning. But there's value in the items on the right and the left. You know, people forget about that. There's a balance in that original Agile manifesto. So
100%. Yep.
And that has gone missing for a lot of people. Become quite extreme. So some of the values we came up with was we value thoughtfulness and prescription, outcomes and outputs, individuals and teams, business and technical understanding, individual empowerment and good leadership and adaptability and planning.
Nice. Yeah. Love it. So you've kind of gone, and this is one of the bugbears I have, and I brought it up with Ari from the Agile Manifesto a little while ago. I mean, he said that one of the biggest mistakes he made, or they think they made, is actually the fourth word, which is saying software. It was never meant to be for software, and it was never meant to be a static document. It was meant to change. But of course, iterations take collaboration, and to be blunt, these are 17 individuals who were all selling something at the time and have continued to sell their lightweight framework since. And now they're quite, what's the nice way of saying it?
Wealthy.
Well, yeah, that too. But I was going to say reasonably aged now. So it's us, right? We're the next generation. We're moving in. We're seeing the results of implementing just Scrum alone. It's not working. You know, Dean, come on the channel, buddy. Promote SAFe. I'll always say SAFe is the gateway drug to Agile, but it's not Agile. You're not scaling Agile, buddy. You're just implementing SAFe. And at the end of the day, we're on the ground floor. We're seeing things happen, and these don't provide any value. What provides the value is actually monitoring the value end to end and then iterating upon that. And we see that all the time with Scrum Masters who are so dedicated to XP, Scrum, Kanban, you know, their ideologies, and they won't maneuver outside those ideologies. So that's cool. So Agile 2.0, sorry, Agile 2.0.
Agile2.net, you can go and have a look.
Agile2.net, excellent. I'll put it in the show notes afterwards as well. So who's involved in that? Is it global or just Australia?
No, it's global. It was put together by a guy called Cliff Berg, who is a bit of a contrarian, I'd say. He's very much a DevOps guy now. He started off as a developer working with people like David Anderson in the early days, and he's written a few books, and he's a DevOps trainer and coach now. And we started talking about it because he felt like DevOps was separating away from Agile and was disappearing into its own place. And my view is that DevOps is part of Agile, and the original Jez Humble, people like that, talked about it at Agile conferences. But what's happened is that the technical side of Agile has kind of split off, and Scrum has taken over Agile in people's minds. So I keep coming across people all the time who think that Agile is Scrum, and obviously it isn't. Agile's much bigger than Scrum. And also I would say Agile is not product development. Product development is much bigger than Agile.
Oh, yes, totally agree. Well, as you know, you've probably heard me say it before we started. I like to say Agile delivery. So obviously I'm a fan of the term agility, agility for the entirety of an ecosystem of an organization, whereas Agile delivery is about the actual delivery aspect. And you're completely correct. Product delivery is huge. It doesn't just include, I like it when Agile coaches will tell me they're qualified in design thinking, and then they'll say to me, oh no, design thinking comes under Agile. I'm like, service design's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's bigger than Agile by a long shot. And some things in service design, Agile coaches wouldn't even want to touch with a barge pole, and vice versa. But yeah, what's your take on, I guess, service design, design thinking as part of the product development suite?
Yeah, so I was executive at a digital agency for the last few years before I went out and set up my own consulting company, and I was in charge of the design team as well as development, and I did quite a lot of work to integrate them together because they had quite a different mindset. Designers really very much still in a waterfall mindset. A lot of them they want to do a big design up front and have it all perfect and then hand it over to developers. Although design thinking is supposed to be quite iterative, it's just that I don't see it very much. So what I'm very keen on is integrating design thinking and Agile together. They're not the same. I don't see design thinking as a subset of Agile. I see them as overlapping domains of knowledge that we can use to build more valuable products.
Yep, I totally agree. And from a very simplistic point of view, I used to say that agility was design thinking plus Agile delivery. That's not it, but it's a very simplistic way of looking at it. If you combine those two together, you get a very adaptable, responsive, and flexible organization. We have a new question from Colot, by the way. which will go into what we're talking about quite nicely. So we've got here, Kola. Murray, in your experience, what's the best way for executives who are new to Agile get a working understanding of the differences from traditional approaches? And Kola, we'll encapsulate that from the Agile delivery and design thinking, the whole of product development, right? How do we get them to go to understand the value?
It's a difficult and challenging question. I think there's two approaches. One is that you can explain all of the problems that they're having now with Waterfall, which is everything's late, everything's way over budget, everything's de-scoped and the quality's bad, right? Everybody has all these awful experiences with Waterfall. So you can start by reiterating that and saying that Agile solves those problems. And then you can demonstrate it. I think people find that for some reason quite hard to believe, but you can demonstrate it by doing it and showing them the benefits and the results, the things that are happening quickly. And the other thing I've done, which is really interesting, is actually to get the executives to use Agile as part of their leadership team. So get the executives to start doing daily stand-ups and creating a backlog of, things that they want to do and start applying it in their area. It's quite easy actually to apply Agile and Scrum and Kanban ideas into a leadership team. And it demonstrates immediately in a hands-on way some of the benefits.
One of the things I actually really enjoy about starting with leaders, I had a whole bunch of teams with Aldo role at police, and we started doing weekly stand-ups with the leadership team, only weekly, but we did them on the floor in front of everybody, so that everyone saw the leaders doing the practices that they're saying that they want people to trial. And just that one little thing, even though the leaders were not truly ready to go that along that journey, just seeing your leader trial something made everybody else go, oh, well, maybe we'll take this a bit more seriously. And next thing we know, we have 60 people up and running in a full transparent product delivery for the police mobile app. So yeah, I totally agree with leaders. Leaders is a prime thing to look at.
I went into one organization that was having really serious problems with delivery, and it was causing them really serious financial losses as well. And I started by doing retrospectives. I did a retrospective with the leadership team about what was working well, what wasn't, and what could be done differently. And then I did a retrospective with the team leads and anybody else I could grab really. And then combined it all and developed a kind of a backlog of changes to make to the organization. And then, we gradually went through it and did them all. And that sort of retrospective approach, I think is really helpful for organizational change, and executives can be part of it.
So I obviously have a thought on that, but I'll ask you the question: why do you think retrospectives are so good for leaders to even start with?
They're very collaborative, and they're a very good way to raise issues in a safe environment, and they demonstrate a problem-solving approach to issues rather than a blame approach. So you can get a lot of issues out on the table in a way that people feel quite comfortable talking about, and then you can prioritize them together, and then you can agree just to work through like the top couple of things. So there's so many things executives are trying to do that they always have a huge amount on their plate. So if you can help them get all the issues out, prioritize them, and just start working through them, that's I think demonstrates value.
Yeah, and I love that as well. I fully agree with you, and I'm a big fan of retrospectives. I define a retrospective as a team reflection. So Bassot obviously wrote the paper originally on reflection. Doesn't mean people weren't reflecting before then, but he created the criteria for reflection. Now, what I like about this is lots of leaders, if not most leaders, have had some form of coaching or training or anything in their lives where they will have heard of reflection already from an individual point of view. You're grabbing something that they already know, you're putting it in a group setting. So it's like, hey, you like ice cream? Let's just try some chocolate ice cream instead of your vanilla ice cream. And they're like, well, I like ice cream. That's not that much different, really. Okay, let's try that. This is really good. Actually, this is great. My team should do this. And this is why I love it. If you look at what leaders are taught in their, their MBAs or their courses they go on, or their business coaches, and go, right, what's similar to that in the Agile community that's not quite plain vanilla ice cream, but slightly different. So they already have buy-in to it, which is why I don't know if that's the reason why you went with retros, but that's why I think retros are a perfect example of what you can start with.
I think retrospectives are the core of Agile and of Kanban too. And I think if you just started with retrospectives, you would reinvent Agile from the ground up.
I think if you could do good reflection, retrospectives in a team environment, you do not need anything else. I will hands down say that I could probably get away with not doing Scrum, not doing Kanban, not doing Safe, anything, if I could have a group of 3 to 5 people who want to just continuously improve. That's all I need.
It's absolutely core, and in fact, a very easy way to find out whether an organization's Agile implementation is working or not is to go to their retrospectives and see what they like.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example. I can't name any names, but I was coaching one large organization that were using Safe, and they were having problems, so they brought me in, and I went to their retrospectives, and I found, first of all, that they were cutting them really short. They were doing them in half an hour, or sometimes trying to do them in 15 minutes. A lot of people weren't speaking, and the reason was because they'd been attacked for raising issues in the past. That's what they told me when I asked them. And nothing ever came out of it. If they raised an issue that with the way the organization was working, which was affecting the team, they would be berated for raising it, and nothing would ever happen. So the retrospectives told me everything that I needed to know about the state of Agile, which was, it wasn't working at the team level, and it was because of an authoritarian management structure.
Yeah, and that happens so often, Murray. The amount of times, why I love Confluence, if it's used for retros, and although you could disagree with this actually, and I kind of do, when I go into an organization that's got their retros in Confluence, I'll read through the last sort of like 3-4 months, which is almost an invasion of privacy, really. So that's why I'm a little bit like this on it, but hey, it's really good for me. And when you start seeing that so-and-so has raised something 3 times and then stopped raising it, but no action was taken to fix it, it's eye-opening. It really is eye-opening.
I think, look, there's 2 types of issues that come out of retrospectives: things that the team can fix themselves, and things that are bigger than the team. And a team that's performing well can fix all its own issues within, if it's allowed to, within a few months. And after 12 months, the team will almost certainly have exhausted all the improvements they can do within the team. And there are yet a lot of problems, a lot of blockers or limitations on what the team do, which are caused by the organization around them. So my view is that managers should focus on picking up issues out of retrospectives and making it their mission to go and improve them, not just for the team, but for all of the teams that they're working with. I mean, you could improve an organization dramatically as a manager by just having good retrospectives of teams, seeing what the common issues are that are boiling up, and then fixing them at a root cause level.
But you have 30 years experience, right, Murray? You've had every role under the sun. I read through your profile. I was like, wow, you've done lots of different roles as well. So I'll make a statement. You see how you like it. I think the Agile community is going to die. Now, not only are we going to die in the next couple of years because we keep on sprinkling all this success and then nothing happens, but also we're going to die because leaders eventually are going to step up and become the coaches that they were always designed to be, which means there's no longer a need for us, or most of us. Is that where you're heading to in your conversation just then? Is if leaders were to step up and start doing retros, listening to the team, remove the blockers, improve the process, improve the flow, continuously learn. Is that where you're going with that? Like leaders basically
It
can
makes me
start.
very sad for you to say that Agile's going to die. I don't think Agile's a fad, and I don't think it's going to die. And I just don't think people are really getting the juice out of it that's there at the moment.
Apologies, Murray. I mean agile practitioners.
Look, I think Agile is definitely becoming commoditized, and the big consulting companies are in there just churning out their playbooks and doing their technical Agile, not really caring and just making money.
Yeah.
I wish that executives would do what you said and use Agile to resolve the root cause of problems across their organizations. That would make their organizations a lot better. But I don't think they will. And that's because executives are people, and people are very flawed. And most executives are there because they are very ambitious, smart people who are very politically astute. So
Okay.
are they going to, like, there's a lot of organizations that really don't want the openness and honesty that Agile is all about.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, for example, you know Theranos with Elizabeth Holmes? There's a whole lot of dysfunctional organizations that are not going to take on, the Agile ideas about openness and transparency and improvement. Things like the Trump White House, Enron, Theranos, WeWork, those sort of organizations are all based on deception and fantasy and, over-promising and under-delivering. That's kind of the anathema to Agile, and there's still an awful lot of that. So, no, I don't think senior executives are going to take the ideas of Agile and use it to improve their organization, and then Agile coaches will become irrelevant because not many executives are able to do that or think like that. I think that they're going to need help for quite a long time.
I won't disagree with you. And I think that could be a conversation going for a while. But one question I will say, do you think the Agile practitioners will become the leaders, which means this will become a self-fulfilling prophecy? I'm seeing lots of Agile coaches become general managers. I'm seeing lots of Scrum Masters become managers. I'm seeing this happen quite often in New Zealand. I introduced Colart, funny enough, to Tanya. Hey, Tanya, if you're on the call, who's a Scrum Master who's now a leader. And she got a leader of 16 people. She has the right mindset. She's growing. She doesn't want to go back to Scrum Mastery because she's getting more done as a leader, but keeping her Scrum Master history. So do you think more of that will happen over in Australia as well? Could be a growing fad?
Yeah, I do see that happening. That happened to me, actually. I became a general manager because, I was asked to do an Agile transformation and for a group and take on responsibility for profit and loss. So yes, I do see people growing from Scrum Masters and Agile coaches into general management roles. I think there's a lot of value that provides in general management roles. So yes, I guess it is going to flow into management, but it's at the moment it's not a big thing.
No.
And I would say executive management is a kind of, particularly in big organizations, is a ruthless political game. And probably political skills are more important than anything else.
Yeah. So Edwin's just asked, kia ora, Edwin again. Do you think the team should be enabled to choose their own framework within the organization? Agile CANs, Scrum, Scrumban, XP, Crystal, or a mixed framework? What do you reckon, Murray?
Yes, within some guidelines.
Some guide rails?
Guide rails.
Sorry, safe joke, guys. Safe joke.
Some sort of safe rails.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually lost out on a consulting gig because I was asked by the Agile leader did I agree with the proposition that agile coaches should be developing and documenting frameworks which would be mandatory for everybody to follow? And I said, no, they shouldn't,
No way.
because yeah, this was at a major organization. And look, I think that people need to have guides to start with, but then they need to be able to iterate from there, because isn't this what
Mm.
it's all about? Improving,
Yeah.
iterating, and then we can learn from teams that are doing things better. So at one organization I worked with, I put in place a whole lot of ways of working and taught people how to do things. And then we had a debate: are we going to make this fixed, or is it going to be flexible? And we decided that people could change it through their own retrospectives and iterations. And then some of them came up with things which were really good and we learnt from. So for example, I didn't know about affinity estimation, but one of my teams somebody went to a conference, they heard about affinity estimations about 3 or 4 years back, brought it back. I watched them do it. It was fantastic. And now I do it with everybody. So
Love it.
yeah.
So I'll give you my view, Edwin, as well. I totally agree with Murray. No, and I used to be a fan of the Scrum Master own the process. And then the Scrum Master will be benevolent and allow the team to have whatever process they wanted, because somebody has to own the process, right? Now I hate that. I absolutely hate that, because it always becomes a dictatorship style Scrum Master who says, no, there's too many constraints. What I will say is that we're in a problem where our ways of working have grown exponentially. We've so many different ways of doing things, and it's become inefficient at times. Why? It's become inefficient because we haven't restructured our organization around customer value yet. And that's where I think personally the next biggest change is going to be. That's why I wrote my thesis on it. It's why at Surge we promote the restructure around customer value, because totally agree with Murray. Start with the leaders, get them on board. Restructure is the second part for me. It's restructuring the organization around customer value, which creates smaller little entities, which means fewer constraints, right? So if you think about democracy as an idea, right? In my house, I have rules. I live in a community on this road, and we have rules to the road that we all agree with. In a city, we have rules in the city we all agree with. In a country, we have rules in the country we agree with. As they grow, those rules become fewer and fewer. Well, they should do, unless you live in a weird country. New Zealand's the most freest country in the world for a reason. Australia's number 3, by the way. Just throw it out there.
You know what? We have a spot in our constitution for New Zealand to join up as a state, which you can take advantage of anytime.
I totally agree. And you can join us at any time you wish as well. So let's put that out there. No, so New Zealand's the freest country in the world. So I come from a bit of a privileged background in that way. Being here for the last 15 years, I can see that I can almost do whatever I want on my own property. I think companies should be very similar. If they want high productive, empowered, happy staff. But to do that, you can't have a 6,000 person organization who are, the constraints over here at the CIO level impacts everyone over here. It just does not work. You need to have much smaller bands and tribes. So I think that's probably where I give my caveat.
Yeah. So look, I totally agree with you. We need to bring in customer value and business value much more. Agile is very often a delivery mechanism.
Yep.
And Agile Manifesto says it's about software development. Scrum has kind of moved on and said it's not about that anymore. But we need to bring much more of this discussion of value into it. So one thing I do is when we're estimating together as a team, I ask the business people in the team to estimate the business value of user stories in points. So just like we estimate the size of user stories in points, let's have a business value estimate. And I say, just do from 1 to 100. 100 is the most valuable you could possibly think of. 1 is the least. Just estimate the business value, and then we'll use that to help with our prioritization. And we'll use it in our management reporting as well. We'll track business value delivered over time. I know it's a little bit arbitrary. It's just like but but it's really just introduces business value into the conversation a lot more.
It's a stepping stone, and it's a great aspect also in the Scout Agile framework as well. WSJIF, weighted job average first. WSJIF, anyway. For those who don't know, guys, in the SAFe framework, they have weighted average job first, WSJIF, and you very similar to what Murray's saying, you estimate the business value, you estimate the duration, and you plot that like an old style project graph to do the shortest job first that has the highest value.
Yeah.
And then you deprioritize it. It is a stepping stone, and I love it as a stepping stone. I'm an ex-accountant, Murray, so for me, I'm like, let's measure properly. Let's go straight to customer satisfaction. Let's go straight to profits. But I agree, you can't do that in the first year, 2 years, 3 years. It's a long journey.
No, I think you can actually do this business value estimate immediately because there'll be some business people in your team who can just have a go at it. But but moving on to real measures of value is harder. So what I would like to do when starting a project is or a product development initiative is to say, what are the objectives and the business objectives? What are the key results? What is the current state? And what are we trying to achieve? And let's start by measuring it. I would love it if everybody started by measuring the current state of whatever the outcome is that they were trying to achieve. We're trying to increase sales leads, we're trying to reduce costs, we're trying to reduce time, we're trying to increase the net promoter score. Let's start with that, and the first thing we should do is start by measuring it. And nobody does it, and I actually find it really difficult to get customers or clients to do this. I haven't got anybody to do it so far.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they don't want to do it?
Because they see the scope as being smaller than that. They see the scope as being about delivery. I think even digital marketing managers see their scope as delivering websites. And let's say we're going to spend millions of dollars fixing up your website so that you can generate a lot more leads. I think it's really worth spending a small amount of money understanding what leads you're getting now and how many of them convert to sales.
Yep.
And organizations don't know this right today. They generally have no idea. There's one organization I worked with, people there were great, but we increased the amount of leads they were getting, sales leads for their product by 5-fold, and it was going into their call center, and their call center people couldn't tell where it was coming from. Like we sort of knew, we could tell we were producing them. When they got them, they didn't know where they were coming from. And so their manager said, well, they didn't come from you, they came from our TV advertising campaign. So everything you were doing was a waste of time. It's just really important, and it's really hard to get people to do. And I think maybe it kind of threatens the existing order that's in place in organizations.
Yes.
Somebody really believes that their TV commercials is what's driving the business, then everything they measure is about TV commercials driving the business. They don't measure digital driving the business, and they don't want to measure digital driving the business because it might undermine their argument and their position in the hierarchy, maybe.
100%. And this is where we look at customer-centric value streams as opposed to functional value streams, right? You should be the same team. What do we do this time that brought us closer to our goals? Excellent, that worked. Let's do more of it. We do that in small businesses. You wouldn't see a butchery or a baker's putting $16,000 into a website and didn't measure the return on it. They did to go bankrupt. But for some reason, we have these organizations that go, okay, this is totally fine to have a $4 million project on updating the infrastructure because we have to. Why? Because we have to. I remember this conversation, Murray. It was in a bank, and I love it because this was a senior GM who said, Michael's prioritizing the backlog with us, right? He's facilitating this. Can you please try and listen to him? But you don't. Michael doesn't understand. If we don't do this, we lose our banking license. So therefore, it's not a priority. Sorry, it's not a priority. It's only the priority. And she said, I love it. She goes, why is that a higher priority than this feature? And the look on their faces was priceless. We lose our banking license. She went, yes. How much revenue would that lose? She went, they were, I don't know. And there's your problem. You don't actually know the repercussions of not doing the action. So therefore, go away, give me the benefits, come back, and we can prioritize it like everything else. And I thought, I mean, she's being facetious because she knows you have to do that to keep your banking license because the revenue is all of it, right? But she was trying to get them to understand from a leader's perspective, you can't just do things because you've always done them. You need to validate why that's more important than this other feature.
Well, also in that case, what you'll find is that people will say we have to do this in order to retain our banking license. And actually, it's not true at all. They're just using that as like the trump card. It's like you're playing cards, Trump, banking license, have to do this. Why? Because banking license. But is it really?
Yeah.
No, it turns out it's not.
Yeah, funny that. And this is where I guess backlog prioritization becomes really fascinating. And we don't have time to go into that, but I think you'd give some great feedback on that. So we should talk about that sometime. But product delivery, Murray. What fascinates you about product delivery? Where's that buzz? Oh, actually, so 1 second. We have got a question. Sorry, Edwin. Edwin says, hey, Murray, I see a lot of books behind you. You must be really smart. 3 topic questions. 1, did you read them all from the beginning to end? 2, what is your best Agile book and what is your worst? So I'm going to preempt your answer because I know the answer to this and ask you, A, to explain the books behind you, but B, what are your number 1, 2 books for Agile?
This background is artificial artifact of Zoom meetings. You can choose your own background, and Michael's got stars behind him. That doesn't mean he's in space. Well, I suppose you could be, but I don't think you are.
You never know.
I have actually read a lot of Agile books. I've probably read about 100 of them. What's my favorite? Gee, that's such a hard question. I still really like XP Explained from Kent Beck. I like, Ken Schwaber's Scrum book on project management. I really, really like the Lean Software Development books by Mary and Tom Poppedick. I like Kanban by David Anderson. Probably, if I was going to suggest books to people, I often refer to people to Lean and Agile in the Trenches by Henrik Nyberg. So clear and practical.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, and everybody should keep reading and read books all the time. I actually find it really surprising the number of people that don't read books at all during their career. In fact, I didn't do it until I was about 35, and because I
really.
Well, yeah, I did my degree, and then I did my MBA, and I didn't want to read any more books. And
you were so over it.
I was over it, and then I was working with some people, and they were reading books about Agile in their field, and I thought, wow, actually, you can learn yourself by reading books. You don't need to go on a course.
Oh, and it's funny. So I personally have learned more from critically analyzing books and the journals, because there's tons of journals, Edwin. If you want to go into it, try and get hold of an access to the scientific journals and search through them. Business Agility Institution has some free ones as well to read through, including mine. Hint, hint, punt. But I find it fascinating how, they skim, if anything, they skim the back of a book. The best one, Murray, is people who say they've read my thesis and they've read the conclusion. And they've just gone for the back and they've just gone, oh, okay, I understand this.
That's where the good stuff is.
So okay, last one from Edwin then on the books. What is the best non-Agile book that you've been reading and can help us as Agile coaches?
I've been reading Black Box Thinking while I've been away on holidays, and
That's
I've
good.
really liked it. It's about errors in. Starts off by talking about errors in medical procedures and in airlines, and it
Mm,
talks about the black box in aircraft and how they record what's happened so you can go back and look at it. So it's about a scientific approach to management decision making and just really how that's not the way management decision making works right now and why it should be.
nice. Love it. I have a question for you then. What wine are you drinking?
I am drinking a Safara Limestone Coast Tempranillo.
Tempranillo. Oh, where's that from?
I'll give a free ad to Wine Selectors, which I came across in an airport. They actually are really good at selecting wines.
Nice. And so we seem to get asked this a few times. Haven't got asked this week, but I still assume everybody wants to know. So we got tonight a Malbec from Argentina. Because I had an Australian on tonight, I thought I'd go for an Australian wine, Argentinian wine. Malbec. I really actually recommend Malbec if you don't like reds because it's quite sweet. Very enjoyable. So we had the last few minutes, and we didn't get onto agile product development. This always happens. With agile product development, what is the pain points that the industry has, and how does agile product development help fix those?
So I'm writing a book called Rapid Product Development at the moment. It's going through reviews with a bunch of agile coaches. I think that agile people don't understand what product management is. It's not product ownership at all. It's far more than that. I've actually been a product manager in a marketing team and a chief product officer, and it's not product owner. It's far more. So I think we misunderstand it. And I think as agile is too focused on delivery, and we need to be much more focused on bringing design and business people into the cycle and customers as well. So we can go through a cycle from discovering a need, developing some prototypes, testing it, building it, and releasing it as quickly as possible. So I would like customer research to be done continuously as part of an agile team. And I would like design to be done continuously and prototyping to be done continuously. So every sprint, I would really like every team to be having interviews with real customers and talking to them, finding out what their pain points are, showing them things you've been building and getting their feedback on it, because that's going to make what you actually build far more relevant.
I could not agree more with you. And this is probably what's missing is at the start when we said what's wrong with the agile community, and we talked about how tools and processes are done okay, and how we're almost overemphasizing the fluffiness. We're not qualified to do so.
Yeah.
Agile product development, is actually what's missing. It's understanding who the customer is, where they play, what problem you're solving, how are you going to win, and then in what way, agile delivery, in what way are you actually going to help fix that problem? And this is where we focus so much on agile delivery and arguing about XP versus Scrum versus safe versus this versus blah, when in reality, the ecosystem is so massive. And this is why executives almost laugh at this agile community, because what we tend to find is that they look at us like fluff bunnies. Like we're basically doing a whole bunch of fluff and not delivering anything, because the real work's been done over here. Get involved, guys. Start making the move into product overall design, delivery, customer interaction, and that's going to help you a lot in your only career, but in delivering customer value.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody should learn about design thinking and user experience design.
100%. 100%. Well, we are out of time, Murray. Do you have any questions or thoughts or reflections of today's session?
No, it's been good. I'm always up for a chat, and it's been fun. So thanks, Michael.
I look forward to having you back if you're willing to come back when you finish your book off. So what people have been doing is they've been flicking the book to me. I'm happy to pay for it. I'll read it and then we'll discuss it. If you're almost completed, I'd also like to talk to you about the process, because a lot of people like to talk about the process and where you're up to on it as well. So that's quite interesting as well. Online, do you have any last final questions that you want to ask Murray? And while they're thinking, Murray, how do people find you? How do people contact you?
So I post daily on LinkedIn. That's my social media network of choice. So you'll see me arguing with people and pontificating on LinkedIn. In addition, I have a website called evolve.co, but with a zero, evolve0.co. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Sorry, I accidentally hit the button to look at me. Look at me, look at me. Awesome. Edwin's just said thanks very much, Murray and Michael. He's been a champ with the questions tonight. Hamidrenza has said thanks, Murray and Michael. Hey, Hamidrenza, where are you from? Where are you from, buddy? I'd like to know where everyone's from because it's quite interesting. Flutz says thanks, Murray. I know we got New Zealand and Australia tonight, but we'd like to say kia ora to anyone else in other parts of the world. Awesome. Well, Murray, well, there's no more questions. Everyone's saying thank you very much. So I'll let you go. I'll just close off with my reflections, and I'll speak to you in a minute, okay?
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Awesome. How good was that? So refreshing to see someone come with 30 years experience to come into this community with not only with the understanding of what coaching is and how we deliver customer value, but also understand the whole wider ecosystem. And that's something you'll see me continuously talk about. We need to understand the customer. We need to bring the customer into the conversation. Why do we exist? Who do we serve? Where do we play? What problem do we solve? How do we win? And then think about in what way are you going to fix that problem as an agile coach? How are you going to empower your teams? Are you going to start with leaders, like Murray said? Totally agree. My reflections from tonight have been along the lines of how important agile project delivery is and how that's going to help solve some of those pain points on what the agile is going on. Kia ora koutou, enjoy your night. Thank you for being with us in Agility Matters, where we focus on adaptive organizations responding to customer needs in a flexible way. Kia ora.
Thanks, Michael.